SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. What we're doing. Okay, second button. All right, Jason, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, let me thank you, 2,000 Meadows, for jumping in at the last minute, or letting us pull you in at the last minute to do this program.
No problem.
It was for us, but you just solved it for us. The reason we're bothering you this morning is we've seen a lot of activity coming out of both the governor's office and the Tulsa mayor's office, and we want to make sure we know how the Mvskoke Creek Nation is responding to that. So, first of all, the governor is relaunching his attack. It seems like there's more divisive language going on. How is our administration, Chief Hill and Second Chief Beaver, taking this, and what's their response?
Well, I think generally we're disappointed that we continue to have adversarial language, adversarial actions, rather than collaborative actions and language. We've spent, a year and a half now trying our best to, collaborate, reach out as much as we can, local law enforcement, get our cross-deputizations up. We've more than doubled them. We've more than doubled our light horse officers. We've poured millions of dollars into our light horse department and to our AG's office, and getting more prosecutors, getting more judges, getting more investigators, doing everything we can on the tribal side. And we've had a lot of municipalities and different people come to the table and say, we want to work with you, and we're here to work with you. And, it's been pleasant to see our federal partners also doing everything we can while, like I said, realizing and indicating that there are challenges, but in working together. And then when you see the other side of things, it's like all the energy and all of the focus has been on repealing or, asking for McGirt to be rolled back, or even disestablishment of reservation. So that's, disappointing that we're still there. And I think for the administration, the city of Tulsa's move was especially disappointing because our Mvskoke roots run very deep in Tulsa, since it was Tallahassee, since it was Tulsatown, and now Tulsa. That's where the Lechaboga people put their ceremonial fires, said this is home. It's always been a place for us where we've poured billions of dollars into that economy and done things for the city of Tulsa that's made it what it is today. So to see,
well, let me jump in here and hang on to that thought, because I want to come back to Tulsa, since it's kind of a nasty point, so to speak. Now, the governor has, seemingly in defiance of federal law and edict, chosen to bring his resources and people against the use of tribal sovereignty and cooperations there. The federal government was talking about pouring more resources into this dispute and into solutions. Now, first of all, can you give me kind of a feel, a capsule for what the feds are doing at the moment?
Well, I mean, the feds are, like I said, we're increasing and sending people to different U.S. attorneys' offices in our districts, getting more prosecutors, getting things like that. We need more federal dollars, but those are things that are that we've went to the highest office that there is. The principal chief not long ago went into the probably about a year or so ago, I think, or probably a little bit longer than that, but went into the office of the Attorney General of the United States, talking about these very things, about what we needed. And that gentleman's no longer the Attorney General of the United States, but the fact remains the same, is that, we need everybody pulling together. And the fact also remains is that when we do all pull together, it means more police, more resources, more money, more public safety for our area. It's kind of for us, it's simple mathematics. When you're adding all of these things together, it means more. So we don't understand really why there's such pushback. I think we probably all have, reasons that we think. There's lots of taxation and civil implications to this decision that I think probably makes, gives us adversaries. So we try our best to toe the line, and we've been working this, we've been implementing it. It is the law. The Supreme Court has spoken, and we certainly hope that they don't take up cert in this case and just feel like the Supreme Court has spoken and said that the Congress never did establish a reservation. So it is what it is, and we're to act accordingly. And in the meantime, there's things we have to work out. There's things that we have to sort of, problems to work through, instances where statute of limitations runs out, or, we have certain cases that come up and are used against us as, see, this isn't working. But my argument has always been, if we did that before McGirt, you'd have several cases and several instances where the justice system wasn't working properly and wasn't working correctly, and somebody got off on a technicality, or somebody got freed on a statute of limitations or something like that. So this all can't be placed at the feet of McGirt. I think it's just sort of conveniently now placed at the feet of McGirt.
I think that, that's stuff that has always happened in the justice system, not just regarding McGirt, but you kind of spoke earlier to the efforts that have been put in by the tribal nations. And so what would that mean if this was like, I feel like our efforts aren't being recognized by the state and we're putting in all this effort. So what does that mean for tribes if they happen to go back on this?
That's a good question, Morgan. I think probably, we look at it and say, we want to build capacity anyway. We want to grow anyway. So, for us, there wouldn't be any regret, so to speak. There would just be, we were trying our best to implement and do what we had to do until things were taken out of our hands. And I think that, we just got, for the time being, like I said, we do have this decision. We, are desperately fighting to keep it in the face of, PR wars and, in the news media, and we have actors out there that are intentionally putting out, sky is falling narratives, and those sky is falling narratives were used on their behalf in arguing before the Supreme Court, and they lost. And I think that, to continue to use those arguments even after a decision has been made, it just seems a little bit counterproductive, and we wish we could all just get on the same page.
What about the city of Tulsa now? Let's focus on that for a few minutes here. Up until recently, the city of Tulsa was acting, and Mayor Bynum was acting like we were going to be friends and work together and everybody was going to be happy. But all of a sudden, we get this reversal, and him throwing his lot in with the governor's stance and saying, we got to overturn this. This is creating disaster, which we haven't seen. And then making these moves without consulting his advisory committees, the Tulsa Indian Affairs Committee. How was that taken by the chief and our administration?
Well, it was taken poorly. I think that the chief was disappointed, as well as the second chief, and I think our legislative branch as well, because they know every tribal resolution, every executive order, everything done on behalf of our, interests in the city of Tulsa that in turn are good for the city of Tulsa's economy. And they know what we've poured into there. We've got the, top entertainment destination right there that brings in, I couldn't give you the figure, but it's very high into the Tulsa economy every year. And, it just felt like you said, it felt like it was a misstep. It was a misstep in communication for sure, because the chief wasn't communicated from the mayor on any of those moves or anything like that. And obviously neither was the own liaison committee there within the city of Tulsa, which is the Greater Tulsa Area Indian Affairs Commission. They were also blindsided. And so for the commission to hold the meeting and have people give comments and have everyone come together, and say, look, we felt like this was a misstep because it came out of nowhere. but we will ask for it to be repealed or the amicus brief to be rescinded. And that was met with, while I appreciate this request, you all don't really have any business in legal matters of this magnitude, and so we're just going to keep it as is. I think it was said in the comments that night when they had the meeting, if you're going to do things that way, why even have a liaison committee? Why, it's almost like window dressing. Here's this little Greater Tulsa Area and Affairs Commission, and it sounds good, and it looks good, and it looks like we're throwing the bone to the Native community, when in reality, they don't make much of an impact as far as when we want to make a decision, we'll just make it. So I think, those are things that were concerning, and that as we move forward, we have to really take a hard look at all the things that we're doing in those areas, and maybe demand that we get a little bit more attention and communication whenever these things come up, or we don't have to partner on certain things, or we don't have to dedicate tribal resources to certain things. And I think that's when you really want to get somebody's attention, especially when they've came to the tribe for many years for certain things, and to fortify the economy in that area. Those are things when you want to get their attention that you maybe have to start considering. So I think for us, it was surprise, it was disappointment, but I think now we kind of take a tone of, now we know what we're dealing with, and we know how to probably act a little bit more accordingly as far as when these things arise, and probably make sure that, not only are we at the table, but we're there to say, in the media or anywhere else where we put out any statements, look, this is the way we feel about it. We're disappointed, and it doesn't fly with us.
There seems to have been like a major switch in the mayor's tune from last year to this year, and it's kind of like, is this for his personal gain? What is he getting out of this? It just really brings up a bunch of questions in my mind personally.
Yeah, and I think probably I have to leave that up to speculation. I know a lot of people probably have their opinions on it. They have their thoughts on maybe why certain things are done in the political realm, why they're not done. You have to feel like everything is done for a reason or a certain purpose in the political world. So you could certainly speculate that. We don't know. The only thing we know is that, there was no communication. That's unfortunate because we have had that decent line of communication and really good partnership up to this point. So I think that, for us, there's all kinds of reasons you could speculate. Nothing really matters except for the fact that we're disappointed that they put in support of repealing the decision.
I think a lot of us were shocked and disappointed when we heard this announcement and opinion coming out of the mayor's office. Now, it looks like they want to, lock horns or something of that nature. But let me perhaps put it this way. How far are we prepared to go in this battle if we get pushed even further?
I think that the chief and the executive branch, as well as the legislative branch and the judicial branch, all, including in the Attorney General's office, we've all said from the get-go that we are here for the full implementation of McGirt, full sovereignty, everything that it affords this tribe going forward, all of the opportunities to thrive, prosper, make this reservation a wonderful place and a safe place to live for all that's within it. And we're not changing. So we are prepared to use every resource, every tool in our shed to be able to fully implement the decision and to fully flex our sovereignty muscle until they say, this decision is rescinded or this is the law of the land gets well. So I think everybody is 100% on board.
It is the law of the land. It is the highest law made.
It's the highest court. That's right.
Okay. Well, we want to let you and Chief and Second Chief know that we're proud of you for standing up and squaring off and being prepared to fight. You make us proud, and we'll look forward to seeing how this comes up. And once again, 2,000 Mados to you, Jason, for bailing us out here this morning. We sure appreciate it.
No, I love coming on with you guys. Like I said, I got a few more minutes if you had any other questions, or grab something real quick that you guys might have been covering that we can get to. But if not, always a pleasure to be on with Mvskoke Radio. Morgan and Gary, you guys do a great job.
Well, thank you. You know what? I'm going to take those couple of minutes here. Then we'll just use your time here this morning while we've got it. Now, we've got the holiday season coming up. A lot of events have been manipulated, I can't think of a word, changed a bit just because of the COVID season that's still with us. What is the tribe prepared to do then for the COVID and the holidays?
I think we've already seen sort of a change up in the way we do things a little bit these last couple of years for sure. And, one of the big things is the kids coming around for the candy and stuff like that for the spook walk. And we had to do a virtual one this year, but, you kind of saw on the Facebook page, the kids coming up to the camera and waving cheese. It's a lot of fun that way. You got to look at the positives and say, it's different, but we can still have fun with it. And I think, what cracked the whole room up was one of these little kids came up and he had his little costume on and he got right in the camera and Chief's waving at him. He gets right in the camera and this little kid goes, "Where y'all at?" the whole room just cracked up. It was a really cool moment. So to me, I look at that and I go, we could still have fun. We could still have a good time while keeping everybody safe. Remembering that we are taking COVID seriously still. We have started rolling out vaccinations for the younger crowd. We do have boosters now available. Excited about that. We've got the infusion clinic up at the Council Comprehensive Healthcare Center rolling. We've been open for a little over a month, and I think we've done close to 1,000 infusion treatments. And that monoclonal infusion treatment, they say, gives you about an 85% chance of not being hospitalized. And I think that's so important because we see so many cases of COVID turn south when the hospitalizations happen. So I think for us to be able to provide that and having people, not people, but organizations like the county of Tulsa. Tulsa County came and said, "Hey, we're giving you $500,000 to this monoclonal infusion center." And, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, they kicked in, I believe, $25,000. So, we have great partners. We still have people out there, despite all the rhetoric from the state. We still have organizations, county organizations, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, reputable organizations that are saying, "We want to partner with you. We're down with what you're doing. And we believe in the Mvskoke Creek Nation." And so for us, those are all good signs. And I think as we move into the holidays too, Thanksgiving, we're Native American Heritage Month. We're doing all we can to stay connected with citizens. We want to get the complex open as quick as possible again, and excited to do that in the future. And so the things that we're doing are, we're trying to stay as safe as we can still and treat it as serious as it needs to be treated, while keeping up some semblance of normalcy around here. That's been hard to do for the last couple of years, but we feel like we've been in it so long that we're getting pretty good at it. It'd almost be a shame to go back to normal right when we figure all this out.
Right. All this energy and setup. Well, listen, Jason, I know you're busy. We'll get out of your way. We appreciate you spending time with us, and our best wishes to you and your family and our administration for the holidays. And we'll be crossing trails again pretty quick.
All right, Mado, you guys. Thank y'all.
Mado. Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew. Gary Fife and Morgan Taylor, who's manning our controls here this morning. We're making this up as we go, just about.
Yes, and it was kind of like that last week, so I'm wondering when I'll be able to produce the show and it's all set up.
I don't know, are you magnetic or something? You come in and everything goes crazy.
Don't say that, Gary, because I might be.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what now. Of course, we have a Veterans Day coming up tomorrow, and we want to wish the best to all of our veterans. And part of our veteran history has always been in conflicts that the United States has had internally and, of course, around the world. And one of the things that affected us as Mvskoke people was the Civil War. And it got pretty close to us here in a major battle, plus skirmishes where our troops were fighting on both sides under both flags, wearing blue and gray, and unfortunately a lot of red.
Yes.
But the Oklahoma Historical Society and the Honey Springs Battlefield folks have put on a reenactment annually to kind of give us an idea of what it looked like, what it sounded like, and a feel for what that was all about. So went over there with my microphone the other day and picked up some sound, talked to some people. So please, here we have our discussion about the Honey Springs battlefield and the Civil War. All right, let me get your name and if you've got a title here.
Hi, I'm Midge Dellinger. I'm the oral historian for the Mvskoke Nation. I work in our Historic and Cultural Preservation Department.
What is it that brings you out here to this Civil War reenactment?
Well, first of all, for me personally, I'm passionate about the Civil War in Indian Territory and the history. It's a topic that I have researched and studied, and I continue to try and learn more about it. You know, for Native American peoples here in Indian Territory, our ancestors, we lived here. I mean, our people lived here on these lands. They were severely impacted by the Civil War and by the Battle of Honey Springs. They suffered and endured quite a bit during the Civil War. And for me personally, I think that it is important that we remember those ancestors and we remember this part of our history. And unfortunately, this is a piece of history that we're not all taught in school. And it's not even written about a lot in books. And so I think this is a wonderful opportunity for me to be out here, I guess, representing the department and representing our ancestors and their story and sharing our story. And my experience out here yesterday and this morning has been that people do want to know this history. They're very interested in it. And, again, people will come up and say, I wasn't taught this in school. And so they appreciate the opportunity to be told this story and to learn this, piece of Mvskoke history.
How important is an event like this to Mvskoke history? I understand there are Mvskokes fighting on both sides, and somehow we always seem to end up at the short end of the stick no matter what. But why is it that you feel you needed to be here?
Well, again, and I'll just say this, I've brought, educational, I've got some educational materials here that people can take with them that talk about our piece of this history and this story. And, for this specific place, again, this battle happened on Mvskoke lands, and we do have ancestors who fought on both sides. The Civil War history, and especially Civil War history here in Indian Territory, is so multi-layered and so complex. But again, it was such a difficult time for us, for our Mvskoke ancestors, and what they were faced with and the decisions that they had to make. And yes, many of our people suffered and died during the Civil War here in Indian Territory. And so for me, I see this as a way to honor them and to respect them and to remember them. We need to remember them.
What about our presence in this conflict and Oklahoma history? How is important is that, and what do you want maybe non-native people to take away with them?
Right. So from the research that I've done on this topic, what I have found and what I continue to find is that our Civil War story, the Civil War story of our Mvskoke ancestors, has really been diminished from what should be an overarching, all-inclusive Civil War story. And that really, once I started doing my research and I started figuring that out, that's really what has driven me to continue with my work on the topic, and why I'm out here this weekend sharing this information with Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, because Indigenous peoples, unfortunately, they don't know, we don't always know our own history, because again, that's been taken away from us. And so, yeah, that's why I think it's important to have a presence here.
What are your thoughts on why this whole thing happened? Slavery was always the main topic. People say we fought to free the slaves. Many Southerners say it was states' rights, and that they invaded our country. And today that division is deep and divisive and almost violent in many cases. So what do you think about what's happening with the way we look at the Civil War today?
Well, again, I think that you can't just look at it in a superficial way, because as I just stated, it's very complex. It's multi-layered. There were so many things happening in the states outside of Indian Territory, with slavery and between the North and the South. And, our leaders and the leaders of the other 5 tribes, they were paying attention to what was going on, back east. And yes, we had slavery here in Indian Territory. We had slavery here in the Mvskoke Nation. But me personally, I don't believe that that is the sole reason why the Civil War came to Indian Territory, and why we engaged, why some of our people engaged with the Civil War. And of course it divided us once again, because of these issues happening outside of our nation. We were divided again, with our upper Mvskoke people and our lower Mvskoke people choosing sides. And really, the upper Mvskoke people and Yahola, that wasn't necessarily choosing sides. He wanted to stay neutral. He was just trying to get him and his followers away. They didn't want to have anything to do with the war. He had, before removal, had made a vow that he would not fight against the federal government ever again. And so he was trying to stay loyal to that vow and to our removal treaty. And he was depending on President Lincoln to take care of him and to take care of his followers, and to keep them safe.
Did you have any ancestors on either side, in blue or gray?
I did, actually. I have 3 ancestors who fought for the Confederacy. And Chili McIntosh being one of those ancestors, and his son William F. McIntosh, who was actually, William F. Lived here close to the battle site prior to the Civil War, and he came back after the war and resettled here, and he's now buried just a couple miles up the road here. And then also Daniel Noonan McIntosh is a relative of mine.
No, we don't. Well, is there any final thoughts you might want to leave with our listeners?
I really want to encourage Mvskoke people and other indigenous peoples to maybe take some time and learn about this part of our history, so that they can understand what our ancestors, went through, and these situations that they were put into, and the difficult decisions that they had to make, and then how they had to survive such a catastrophic event in their lives. Again, I think it's important that we know the history of our ancestors, that we don't forget them, that we remember them.
Okay, Mado.
Mado.
Yeah, the safety is very important, and like I said, the reenacting community, we always work with them, and they do a good job of, making sure that everybody's safe and all that. So, that's the most important aspect. So.
Well, the one I've seen before when they had musketry, they really didn't aim it at the enemy. I saw one guy
That's right.
took his piece and aimed it up in the air, and then some guy in a Confederate uniform fell over.
That's correct. Yeah, you don't ever want to, shoot directly at the other. You want to up in the air because even powder can be, it can be harmful. So, yeah, especially when you're up pretty close to somebody, and that's why they always, they know how far to go between one another and where not to go. So.
What about things like swords and bayonets?
Let's see here, the CAV units, they use the swords, and they do a good job of that.
Are they restricted into what they can do? I mean, nobody's going to be in there with a wild stroke or somebody trying to get somebody in the belly with a bayonet.
No, they're restricted. They're not going to do any of that, and anybody with the sword or a bayonet, it's not going to be out during the reenactment. So, that's very important.
Okay, I'm interested. You seem to have a lot of visitors here before the activity starts. What kind of crowds do you draw? I mean, what's the interest?
Well, we have a 3-day weekend. The first day was yesterday, and we had about 1,500 students from across the state attend our education day, and throughout, give or take, throughout the weekend, we'll probably see, a total of 4,000 to 6,000 people, which that's great.
One of the things that's in the news today is question of what does it represent? What does each side represent? It's real political and quite emotional and actually kind of brutal in some discussions. Is that part of the educational process that you do here? Is like, why do these guys do this?
So each side, I always tell people this is one of the most culturally diverse conflicts to ever take place in the entire Civil War, and that is in Indian Territory, current-day Oklahoma. And the reason for that, it would be those are the 5 tribes fought here, in particular the Mvskoke Creek Nation. They fought for both sides, and that is a very much a part of the history of this conflict. That's what makes it stand out so much, is the cultural diversity. And you had the 1st Kansas Volunteer Infantry Regiment, which was the very first African-American regiment to ever fight in the entire Civil War. They were placed in the very middle of the Union lines, and and then you had those of the Cherokee Nation fighting for both sides. So the educational process for that, the visitor center that we have, the new exhibits will detail that history in more detail, But the actual reenactment, we do the best we can, and they do a great job of reenacting that.
Do people understand your goal here is the educational process? Or have you had incidents where people's emotions kind of spoiled a day?
No, not so. I've been here 4 years, and we've never, since I've been here, we haven't had that issue. We haven't had any issues like that. So we're we have a great support group, the Friends of Honey Springs, Oklahoma Historical Society, Mvskoke Creek Nation, and all the other tribal nations. We have a wonderful relationship.
Let me ask you about that, particularly the Mvskoke. Is there a formal participation here? Do they send a delegation, or just members of the tribe who are interested?
Members of the tribe who are interested, we have Midge Dellinger from the Mvskoke Creek Nation here, and when she came out yesterday as well from the Oral History Department. And we work with the Oral History Department and Midge Dellinger and everybody in that group closely, and we'd love to work with them more.
It seems like this would be a lot of fun too, if
Yeah.
you can run around in your costumes and be part of this. And the feedback you get from the participants, what do they tell you about wanting to do this?
Oh, so many people, they don't even realize the battle happened here, and when they hear there's a reenactment, they come out. And a lot of people don't know anything about a reenactment, and so that draws interest. And they say, "Where can I join up?" And we kind of point them in the right direction and say, this is a group from Tulsa or Arkansas or wherever they're from, and they can go on from there.
As the event and the demonstrations go along, what is it that you hope that your visitors will take home with you?
That this is the most pivotal conflict to ever take place in the entire, in the Civil War in Indian Territory, and it played a large role in how we were later formed as a state, and it's most culturally diverse. And out of 107 documented conflicts, this was the largest. So we want everybody to understand that the Civil War did happen here. Its history is very important. The people who fought here and their cultures are very important, and that's what we want people to go away with.
Okay, now you mentioned one more question. I promise to get out of your way here. It raised a question in my mind: how would this compare to something like Pea Ridge, where there are a lot of Indian troops there?
Pea Ridge, that's a great question. All right, so I have to go back here. Early on, formerly the five tribes signed with alliances with the Confederacy, and then there were those that defected, right? In those treaties, it's very well stipulated that they would not have to fight outside of Indian Territory. Well, that proved not to be true. By 1862, the Indian Brigade, as it was called, the Confederate forces, they were actually ordered to fight at Pea Ridge, and most of them marched towards Pea Ridge, but the only ones that fought at Pea Ridge were the Cherokees that fought here. But this would have taken place 1 year prior to the conflict here. That was the largest conflict to take place west of the Mississippi, Trans-Mississippi Theater of the Civil War, which we're a part of. 26,000 total troops fought there, 9,000 total troops fought here, 6,000 for the Confederacy and 3,000 for the Union.
Well, thank you very much. Anything else?
No, we just we encourage everybody to come out to the new visitor center and enjoy the exhibits and the battlefield.
My name is Trait Thompson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Historical Society.
Now, why are you here in Honey Spring?
Well, this was the most pivotal battle of the Civil War in Indian Territory. And not only that, it was the most multicultural battle of the entire Civil War. You have Native Americans from most of the five tribes, and then you had the 1st Kansas Colored Regiment, which came down from Fort Scott, Kansas. And so most Civil War battles were not this diverse in terms of the people who participated in them. And not only that, this was a pivotal battle because up until 1863, the Confederate Army held control of Indian Territory, and then after this battle on July 17th, 1863, Union Army assumes control and doesn't let it go until the end of the war.
So it was a matter of control over this part of the territory.
Sure, yeah, and if you recall in the history, there's a few key pivotal battles in 1863. In the east, you have Gettysburg. That happens July 1st through 3rd, 1863. Vicksburg happens right around the same time in 1863, and then this one happens July 17th of 1863. So in 3 different theaters of the war, you have key Union victories at all of those. And so this, for Indian Territory, was pivotal because, at that point, it gives Union control and for basically this whole part of the United States after that.
I'm always amazed at the authenticity. I mean, you've got all these reenactor units, horse, foot, artillery. Do you get that same kind of representation here with the folks who take part?
Well, one of the interesting things, this is my first reenactment to be a part of here. But from having walked through all the camps and from meeting the people that do this are really passionate. And when you talk to them, I've asked them questions about, well, how did you figure out what uniform to wear and what gun you were supposed to have? They've done years and years of research to get everything down to the finite detail. In many cases, they've made their own clothes that resemble the clothes that the soldiers would have been wearing. So I think by being out here today, you're going to see a very authentic representation about what would have happened in a Civil War battle, of course, albeit on a smaller scale than the real thing. But you're also going to see what were they wearing, what were they eating, what were they drinking, how were they like in camp. So you're going to see all that here. And I brought my kids with me this weekend because I wanted them to see all of this, and it gives them a picture of what that time would have been like in 1863.
What is the interest of the Historical Society in this particular event?
Well, this is, first of all, Honey Springs Battlefield is an Oklahoma Historical Society site. We operate it and we manage it. But more than that, you know, when we're looking at things that need to be preserved in Oklahoma history, we're preserving a story here that needs to be told. First of all, one of the biggest things is all the Native American participation in the Civil War. Most people have no idea that there was that much of Native American participation in this war, if they know it at all. The second thing is the 1st Kansas Colored Volunteer Infantry Regiment was the first black regiment to see action during the Civil War. Now, you have to remember, back at that time, there were real doubts about whether black soldiers could be as courageous, whether they could withstand fire as white soldiers. And so that was a big thing that was debated. Well, at this battle, the 1st Kansas is in the middle of the line, and they're pivotal in winning this battle. And all of their commanding officers afterwards say they acquitted themselves well. They were courageous under fire. They were the difference in the battle. And so that's a story we can tell here, and that happens here in Oklahoma. Now, everybody knows about the 54th Massachusetts that is portrayed in the movie Glory. But what most people don't know is this battle happens one day before the 54th Massachusetts charges Battery Wagner in South Carolina. So this is pivotal for African American history and soldiers in the Civil War.
Growing up as a kid, I was always aware of people who were Southerners and Northerners, and sometimes it got a little tricky there. And that's a question that's been growing over the decades. In the last few years, things like the Confederate battle flag and statues of different generals have become quite nasty topics. Now, which goes back to the question of racism and slavery and this sort of thing. Now, do you address those kinds of things in something like this, or is there a way that the society deals with it?
Yeah, so we do deal with it. You know, we have a rule that says that we don't display the Confederate battle flag unless it's in a historically appropriate setting. So you will see it out here today because we do have documentation that flag was used in this battle. So we are very careful about that. We want to make sure that we're being historically accurate. One of the things that's important to me, though, is that we're telling stories of our history, and we're not whitewashing or we're not, brushing over anything. It's not our job to just tell good history or bad history. We want to tell all the history. And so as part of that, what we're doing is good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever. We're talking about the history. And so that also gives opportunity to talk about some of the things that led to the Civil War. You know, the enslaved population in this country was the major reason that the South seceded from the war. You can't get away from that fact. It's in their documents of secession and all those kinds of things. So we can tell that story. But we can also tell the story about what's happening in the South at the time, what's happening in the North at the time, and then all of the conditions in the country that lead to us getting to this place. And we can also talk about how many of those same issues that we grappled with during the Civil War we're still grappling with today as a country.
Do you ever have any incidents where people let those emotions kind of get away from them and maybe start a huge political argument or even worse?
Well, so far this is my first reenactment out here, and what I've seen is sort of a healthy, friendly rivalry between the two camps, and I'm going to be actually in the reenactment later on a Union artillery crew, and some of the Southern folks have given me a hard time about that, but I have not seen it I haven't seen any passions inflamed or anything like that out here yet, but like I said, it's my first one, and really what I'm hoping is, and what I've seen so far is 95% of the people out here are out here to tell the historic story. They want to talk about, the reasons for the war, and they want to help people understand how it would have been fought and all of those kinds of things. And so I hope that we don't have any passions inflamed or anything like that. But really, we're all out here, to learn something, to have a good time on a beautiful fall day, and to appreciate the sacrifices that our ancestors made.
Okay, wonderful. I think I've seen everyone actually having a good time. It's got to be the first time I've seen an artillery piece pulled by an ATV. There's an interesting mix of time and cultures here. Are there any final thoughts you might want to share with us?
Well, I would just encourage everyone. There's so many unique and fascinating stories about Oklahoma history, and this Battle of Honey Springs is just one of those. And I encourage everyone, go to our website, okhistory.org, and you can find out where all of our sites are. Go and explore, go learn, and if anybody has questions, all of our people at all of our sites are ready and willing to answer questions and to help you find what you're looking for.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Nobody down at the other end is. I don't want to quit yet. They're not out of hand.
It's quite an experience watching this reenactment going on. Details, authenticity, and you can tell by the roar of those cannons, destructive power that was being used and displayed there.
Oh yeah, it sounded really real.
It was real, and these guys were only firing powder. There was
wow.
no bullet, so to speak, inside those cannons. Excuse me. Well, this is the week that we honor American veterans, and we hope that many of your listeners who had the opportunity to go into Tulsa and watch that moving wall and take a look at it and honor the men and women who fought in that mess and didn't make it home. So we hope that maybe you did that. Also, our own Veterans Day celebration begins tomorrow here on the campus here at 8 o'clock to 9:15 is an open house for Mvskoke Nation Veterans Building, and so the public is invited to that. Refreshments provided. And later that morning at 9:30, the recognition of Mvskoke veterans. Principal Chief Hill and Second Chief Beaver will be speaking and highlighting that presentation. And at 10 a.m., there's a 21-gun salute done by the Mvskoke Nation Honor Guard. And those will be at the Mvskoke Veterans Flag Memorial. Now, let's take a pause here. We have a PSA we need to share with you, and so please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio.
Hello everyone, I'm Angela King with the Stroke Prevention Program. With the support of the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board and Mvskoke Nation, we want to help Native Americans in our community lower their risk for stroke and heart disease. 80% of strokes are preventable just by reducing health-related risk factors. If you are interested in how to reduce your risks, please contact me at 539-299-1530. Again, that number is 539-299-1530.
Okay, welcome back. We have a few more announcements.
This Saturday, November 13th, the Eufaula Community Center is hosting a Native Arts event with an Indian taco sale from 11 to 2. But the event actually goes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And this is at the Eufaula Community Center, 121 High Street, Eufaula. Painting demonstration by John Tiger, 50-50 pot, and consolation prizes.
The Big Casetta United Methodist Church is sponsoring their own Veterans Day celebration program. Their featured speakers, James Floyd, the former principal chief of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. That's, of course, on tomorrow, November 11th, starting at 11 a.m. with a dinner following. So you want to go 3 miles east of Okmulgee, 62, and then 3.5 on Prairie Bell Road. That's Big Casetta United Methodist Church.
The College of Mvskoke Nation is still looking for armed security officers. They are looking for 2 of them, so if you have experience or would like to learn about this position, you can call them at 918-549-2800.
And getting ready for Christmas, there's a celebration planned at the Council House Square, and the Cultural Center and Archives Department and the Creek Nation Council House is starting a new tradition this holiday season to light up the Council House Square. They're inviting Mvskoke Nation departments and community organizations to decorate trees around the Council House lawn, so help promote and display our creativity. They need trees, tree stands, decorations, lights, and they will provide electricity and some signage. So come join the fun. To reserve your spot, give them a call, 918-549-2434. Okay, that does it for our announcements. Now, it being such a focus on our veterans made me take time to look at some of the stuff in our own family, and I ran across a photo of my father in his Marine uniform, and he fought in the Second World War. It affected him so much he never really wanted to talk about it. So what was your family like? How did they deal with that?
My grandpa, he was in Vietnam, and I've never heard him talk about it. All I know is that he has issues hearing because an explosive device went off close to him, and so he has really big issues hearing because of injury he had over there. But yeah, I feel like it's hard. It's a hard conversation to have with veterans because you don't really know what they went through, and you don't want to bring up triggers or bad memories. You don't know how they've dealt with it or if they even have. It's a hard conversation, but it can be worth it to have with somebody.
The Veterans Administration folks here at the Mvskoke Nation have always talked about our participation, and one of the things that is always brought up is proportionally, percentage-wise, there are more Native Americans serving in the armed forces than any other minority in the nation. And from what I understand, a lot of them were like Marines and Rangers and things that were
the first line people.
You got it. Putting them out there, I guess, in the most dangerous spots. Now, I was a lucky kid. I got, the notice to report to the draft board and everything like that. So I went down and, took the physical and took the tests, and they said, okay, we'll call you. I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. But luckily, the president at the time, Nixon, ended the draft 2 numbers before me.
Oh, wow, you were all right on that line, weren't you?
You got it. Yeah, I'm seeing all these Oklahoma boys, getting shoved into the military, and I'm thinking, okay. Well,
what kind of feelings does that bring you, Gary?
Well, first of all, our family did serve, and I was thinking, okay, well, soon it'll be my turn, and I'll go. But this was a time of unrest among young people here in the United States, and they opposed the war. They said it was wrong. There was no sense in having our young people go over there and die in somebody else's war. And I remember one of my roommates said, they didn't fight in our Civil War. Why should we fight in theirs? Which is kind of an unusual way to look at it, but I was moved by a lot of passion that our young people say, no, this is wrong. We shouldn't do this, and we should question our government for getting us involved. And then, I think slightly after that, at Kent State, Ohio, the college there, 4 students were shot and killed by the National Guard during a demonstration against the war. And
wow, that's pretty heavy.
Oh yeah, I mean, it struck us all. Everyone that I know, young people, is this kind of a heavy blow that just knocked you down. You think, oh my God, our own soldiers are shooting us, because we said the war is wrong. And the group Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young did a tune called, God, was it Ohio?
Long time ago.
Oh yeah. But I remember the line says, "Please come to Ohio just to sing," I think. And it just struck us all as, why are we involved? Why? And I think in a broader sense, I was thinking, why do we have to do this in the first place? From the first guy with a rock or a stone club or something like that, all the way up till now when we got nuclear weapons. This is a stupid way to resolve your differences.
Oh yeah, I don't like war, but I appreciate veterans.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, some things just are out of any individual's control.
Right, you're proud for them standing up and doing what they had to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And something like the Second World War is real clear that we can't let the dictators take over. I mean, they can't be running our country and destroying our liberties and things like that. So you look at people now and the veterans now, and I'm so proud of them. When I see the honor guard and things like that, and now they've got this 21 gun salute coming up.
I love hearing those gun salutes. I think they just bring tears to my eyes, and I think this is a heavy time of year for veterans coming into the holidays, and especially after this holiday. So I think we should be reminded that if you are struggling, to reach out to somebody and have that conversation, and don't be afraid of opening up if you're struggling.
Right, and remember that we're proud of you. Okay, what do we got here? Oh, we've got about a minute and a half here. So we want to thank you all for listening in today. And as Morgan here was flying the plane here, she did a good job. And I don't know what, believe me, folks, very confusing and very tense morning putting this show together.
It ran better than last time as far as the sound goes, I think. I did better on my levels, and except for me, I keep turning my head to talk to you.
Yeah, well, that's a habit that you have to deal with.
Yes.
If you do that, you're off mic. And you're,
Right.
So you'll be hearing more of her in the future. And actually, we're going to turn her loose and let her fly solo on a show in the very near future. So.
Ooh, I'm excited. Hopefully you guys listen.
Okay, well, I tell you what, why don't we hunt down the music out button up there, and let's punch that up, and let's go to lunch.
All right. Bye, everyone.
But You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. But